Hello, welcome to the ILC's presentation on math anxiety. My name is James Strickland, and I'll be your host today. The goal of today's presentation will cover three main aspects related to math anxiety. We're going to first look at and acknowledge and analyze our personal stressors that lead to anxiety, learn techniques and strategies to reduce such anxiety, and then hopefully reframe our attitudes towards mathematics in general. An idea of working through all these concepts, we'll have a better understanding of what math anxiety is and how to resolve it to the extent possible. So think for a second, what are your personal stressors about math? More broadly, what is it about math that stresses people out? Anxiety, though it is a personal experience, it is rooted in public situations. And so, what exactly do we mean by math anxiety? Well, in general, it's that feeling you get that causes tension, fear, or nervousness, and it somehow causes you to have issues with being effective at math or doing math related tasks. Some causes are associated with negative experiences, whether it be in the math classroom or math situations or on math exams. And it's a belief that you're simply not good at math. And often, people who have math anxiety have other confounding issues like ADD. Symptoms of one experiencing math anxiety could be increased heart rate, excessive sweating, worry, dread, or difficulty remembering or feelings of hopelessness. And of course, what happens as a result of having this anxiety? You get an inconsistent math performance. You often don't wish to continue into math related fields. You take the one math class you have to take and you stop. It becomes a self fulfilling prophecy in some sense, where you say you're bad at math, so you struggle and you're unable to focus as well as you want to. And as a result, you don't do well in an exam, and you therefore verified your original condition that you're not good at math. You get what we call an entity orientation. That is, that you essentially let your math performance become who you are. Instead of saying, I did poorly on a math test, you internalize and say, I am bad at math. And that could be dangerous because it can lead to situations where you, again, all the above aspects, you don't persist in that kind of stuff, but you also just think negatively about yourself and it can affect your well-being. And those kind of actions can all lead to what we call negative math inheritance. That is, you can essentially instill those beliefs about yourself into your children or into your family or other people in your community. You know, my mom was bad at math, so I'm bad at math, and therefore my kids can be bad at math, that kind of stuff. So, anxiety itself can have a variety of appearances. The three most common are the ones that lead to blanking, like you just go blank on an exam, or a distracted focus, where you can't really focus on a single topic, or you completely avoid mathematics. And you can see the general trajectories here. Catastrophic thinking leads you to have anxiety, which causes you to blank out. You have that self criticism where you just believe you're bad at math and it causes you to kind of distract and not really be able to focus, or you just avoid it entirely. And that can lead you to not learning the material because you're not studying it. So, what should we do? Well, obviously, we want to speak positively or kind to ourselves, give ourselves permission to make mistakes and accept that it happens. And it's okay to get something wrong. It's okay not to know everything or know stuff as fast as your classmates or just know it differently. All those things are fine. And be curious when you do make a mistake. Don't get mad about the fact that you got it wrong. Wonder why and explore and engage in the love for being incorrect. And ultimately learn from those mistakes and failure and learn how to internalize mistakes as just future opportunities to shine. So, in other words, the best way to handle your math anxiety isn't to deny it. You can't just say, well, I don't have anxiety anymore, like it doesn't exist, but rather accept that you have anxiety. We all have math anxiety. Myself, I have a PhD in math education, and I still get anxious when I do some math problems. It happens. It's okay. It just means that you're passionate and you care about it. So accept that you're going to have anxiety, accept when it happens, face it, and learn to reframe it. And later on, when we get to it, you'll see us talk about ways you can face it and how to reframe it. So in the facing it idea, we have some strategies here that we're going to talk about. And you can see them on the list. I'm going to go in detail of each one of these. So one way when we're dealing with math is to try to find ways to categorize the different concepts and ideas, group them into different fields. Like if I was in an algebra class, I'd want to have one section of my class focused on graphing and have my notes nice and organized and that kind of stuff. It helps us to compartmentalize or group ideas into nice, tidy areas so that when we get to questions on the class or assessments and that kind of stuff, it's easier to go into that, file in your brain and pull out the information. So learning to categorize will help you with the anxiety because you'll know how to go and dig out that information in your head. Another one is called translating, learning how to take the math jargon and turn it into understandable English or whatever language you wish to do it in. And so in this case, with a problem with a triangle missing an angle, and so we would just think, well, what is it actually asking us to do? Or we're trying to find an interior angle and then use that information to work through and try to solve it. Obviously, we don't need to do it right now, but that's what you would do on any kind of question. Try to always internalize it and then turn it into understandable English or understandable language that you like. In that same vein, not only should you work on problems that way, but when you take notes and you take directions or steps and you write down procedures, one really important thing that people often overlook is we only transcribe exactly what we see the professor or the teacher write down into our notes. And that's nice and everything, but it's not in our voice. And we are much more able to recall what we need to recall when it's in our own words. And so when you write down procedures and steps, it is good to write down what your instructor writes, but then write it again and put it in a language that's much more common to yourself. Write it in directions and steps that you would use in your own voice. It makes it so much easier to recall. And it will help us if we start blanking on exams, we can recall it in our own natural language, our own natural words. Now, the other aspect is this idea that we have to always be right when we first do a problem. On the background image, you can see a case where I had about 20 different attempts at solving a problem. That's my exact work. I'm trying to work through an advanced math concept. And I kept getting it wrong and getting it wrong, getting it wrong until I finally got it right. And I was quite, exhilarated when it happened. It made me feel amazing. And so drafting is a huge idea that you need to understand that, like when you write papers, you write drafts of the paper multiple times before you turn in your final paper. It's getting at the concept that we're not intended to always get things on the first go around. If that was the case, you wouldn't have so much math homework, right? So we're intended to try and try and try, and it's okay to get it wrong and just persevere. No one gets it right on the first go around. Another important idea or strategy or concept to get a hold of is this narrative or analogy in math. A lot of the fields and topics and ideas are very closely related. And so if you can build those connections and link ideas together, it will make it easier to recall that information. Another way of lowering the burden and the blanking effect. And so understand, like, for example, on the screen here, the word equals and the word congruent both mean the same thing essentially in our field. In addition to all those previous strategies that are mentioned, we have all these resources at this college that will provide you support. The ILC offers free tutoring for math, writing, computers, and a whole host of fields. You have disability support services that can provide help. The library provides help. The Nest is a way of getting access to nutritional items and that kind of stuff. And of course, when this session's all over, you can ask for these links and we'll provide them for you. And you can get all the help you want at no cost or low cost. The ILC is always free. As you try different methods, ultimately find the one that works best for you. It's all about trying to lighten that anxiety. We can't make anxiety go away, but we can learn how to deal with it very effectively. And so now, in terms of reframing it and understanding it, we want to get into the idea of mindfulness. Aaliyah Crum here did a lot of work on how we do our self-talk. And she found that positive self-talk is one of the best ways to help with math anxiety. And essentially, the more you convince yourself, the more you believe in yourself, the more you know that you are an amazing person, the more likely the results will be consistent with that. In a similar vein, the more you are negative upon yourself and the more you tell yourself you can't do something, the more that becomes the reality as well. And so, one thing we like to do as a practice is encourage journaling about math. And so, essentially, when you start feeling that anxiety come upon yourself, when you have time, of course, journal. Think about what exactly is causing you to worry. Why do you think that happens? Try to understand the source of your anxiety. And so if it's test related, think about why it happened. Was it from you studying something that didn't appear on the test? Did you forget to study an important concept? Did your test performance match your homework performance? Obviously, if you're getting every single thing right on the homework and then it comes to test time and you don't, that's a red flag that you have some kind of test anxiety going on. And then once we can kind of get at the root causes or the ideas of what's driving this math anxiety, we can then work on a mindset adjustment and try to change how we're thinking about math and ourselves as mathematicians. So back to Professor Crum's work, that positive self-talk is such a big aspect. You do know stuff. Everybody here is in college, so you've passed the appropriate math courses you need to pass to get here. So don't you can't believe the narrative that you don't know math. You do know stuff. And you just have to make sure that you can confidently say you're prepared. Did you study? Did you work hard? Are you doing what you need to do? If those answers are yes, then you are prepared. You do know what to do. You are a growing mathematician, and you just need to keep practicing, keep drafting, making notes, build those analogy connections, work at it, and know that you'll be good at this subject. In addition to just saying it, also practice visualizing it. What does a good mathematician look like? Not in terms of like their appearance, but what behaviors or actions do they do? And then when you visualize, what does it mean to be a good math student? What does that kind of behavior look like? You can then compare what behaviors you're doing. And now you know where to start adjusting. Look back at your drafts, look back at your notes, your journaling. Are you doing what you just visualized that a good mathematician does? If so, great. If not, then we need to work on an adjustment. Now, deep breathing is another great exercise. It helps us with reframing and catching ourselves when we start feeling anxious. It's one of our strong ones. And we recommend in the ILC the 4-7-8 strategy. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds. Not exactly seconds, but as you count yourself 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And then exhale, counting out to 8 in your head. And you do that a few times, 3 or 4. And then after that, you see how you feel. If your anxiety is lessening and you're getting less of a tension, then go about your business. If you notice that it's still there, repeat the process a few times and keep practicing deep breathing. It allows you to recenter yourself, bring yourself back to control, and understand what's going on. It brings you to a sense of mindfulness. Mindfulness is essentially the ability in your head to know what's going on, know what's causing you to be anxious, knowing what strategies effectively get you past being anxious. You can't make it go away, but what do you do that effectively allows you to mitigate it so it's not overriding everything? And why do we care about that? Well, if you have a good, strong sense of mindfulness, it will help us attack those problems that we talked about earlier with anxiety. Helps you to bring focus, have some kind of sense of control, gives you realistic goals to do that visualization piece, helps you, try to reduce avoiding and that kind of stuff. Essentially, it helps us to control or limit those three characteristics that are natural manifestations of anxiety. You're going blank, you're distracting, or you're avoiding learning. And so we want to limit or control those kind of manifestations to the extent possible. So overall, from this presentation, I hope that we got to learn to acknowledge and analyze our personal stressors, learn techniques to help reduce those math anxieties, and then reframe our overall attitude towards math. Thank you for attending this math presentation on anxiety from the ILC, and I hope to see y'all in our centers, getting help where you want help or getting ahead when you want to get ahead. Either way, I hope this presentation was beneficial and helpful to you. Have a great day. Feel free to reach out to the center or myself if you have any questions.